Welcome to Power Talks, your go-to channel for unlocking the power of education and skill development. Here, we dive into transformative tips, expert insights, and inspiring stories to help students, professionals, and lifelong learners in Kenya and beyond achieve their dreams. Whether you're preparing for exams, building your career, or seeking personal growth, this is the place to be. Subscribe now and join the Power Talks community as we empower you to learn, grow, and thrive. Listen to the hosts now.
Okay, so you're fresh out of school, diploma's in hand, ready to take on the world. But then, reality hits.
It does, doesn't it?
The job hunt. Ugh, it's tougher than you expected, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the work itself?
Not quite what you pictured.
No. And then suddenly everyone's talking about office politics.
Oh, yeah.
You're not alone if this sounds familiar. Not at all. Today, we're diving deep into this.
Deep dive.
Yes. This tricky transition from campus to career.
Huge.
The challenges.
Oh, there are so many.
But more importantly, solutions.
We like those.
We do like those.
Practical stuff.
Yeah, because we all go through it, right? That feeling of, wait, why didn't they teach me this in college?
Seriously. Every single time.
Exactly. It can feel like, you were handed this toolbox.
Yeah.
Without the instructions.
No instructions.
Which brings us to this guide we're exploring today.
Ooh, a guide.
It's all about overcoming, those early career hurdles, packed with things they really should have taught us back in school.
The important stuff.
Like handling rejection or building resilience.
It's true. I mean, a lot of us, we leave school, we've got this knowledge base, but we haven't really had a chance to, apply it.
Right. Like, I remember starting my first job, and I felt totally lost.
Yeah.
Totally lost. Even though I did well in my classes. What does this guide say about that knowledge gap? Why do so many of us feel unprepared, even with a degree?
Well, it points out how academia a lot of times focuses on theory, right? The why behind things. But workplaces, they need that on-the-ground problem solving.
So it's not that all those classes were useless. It's just we're missing the how-to manual for the real world.
Yeah, you could say that. It's like the foundation. Formal education is the foundation, and now it's about building on it.
Wait.
Continuous learning.
Okay, continuous learning. I'm intrigued. What does it recommend in terms of, specific continuous learning, especially for someone just starting out?
It actually gets pretty granular.
Oh, does it?
Like it stresses, how important industry-specific workshops are.
Yeah. Online
courses to stay sharp.
Right.
Even suggest seeking out mentors within your field.
Mentors, okay.
Who can offer more, tailored guidance. And of course, the good old internship.
Internship, yeah.
That's the classic way to gain real-world experience before you're fully committed to a specific job.
Right, right. It makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like you can read all the cookbooks in the world.
All of them.
But nothing beats actually, getting in the kitchen.
Getting your hands dirty.
Yeah, and experimenting.
That's it. And speaking of real-world experience, let's talk about workplace culture. Have you ever walked into a new office and felt like you'd landed on another planet?
Oh, yeah.
Those unwritten rules, the communication styles, so confusing.
Totally. Oh, I remember once, early in my career, I accidentally replied all to an email chain. That probably shouldn't go to the entire company. Let's just say I learned a lot that day about reading the room.
Been there. We've all been there. Every workplace has its own unique culture, its own language almost.
True.
What I find fascinating is this guide. It compares it to learning a new language. Immerse yourself. Observe. Listen more than you speak initially, and adapt as you go.
Okay, so how do we avoid those awkward email mishaps? How do we crack the code of workplace culture? Is it all about fitting in?
It's interesting. The guide actually frames it more about building relationships, active listening, that's key.
Right.
Truly understanding what your colleagues are saying.
Okay.
And showing respect, even when you disagree with someone's perspective.
That sounds challenging.
Right.
Especially when you're new, and try to make a good impression.
It is, but there's this really interesting tip. Ask for feedback.
Ask for feedback.
It shows you're eager to learn, to adapt to the company's way of doing things, and finding a mentor within the organization. That can be invaluable. Someone who can give you that, an insider perspective on the unspoken rules and dynamics.
It's like having a translator for the cultural nuances. All this preparation is great, but what about when things don't go as planned? This guide has some interesting advice, right, on handling those inevitable rejections.
Absolutely. Rejection. It's a part of life, and especially a part of, starting your career. Everyone faces setbacks.
Everyone.
Even the most successful people.
Really?
We just don't see that part of their story very often.
That's true. It's easy to feel like you're the only one failing, especially when everyone's posting their highlight reels online.
Yeah.
So how does the guide say we should deal with those no's, the didn't works?
This is where it gets really insightful. It reframes failure, not as the end, but as data.
Data. That's an interesting way to look at it. How do you actually apply that, when you're feeling discouraged after a setback?
It's about shifting your perspective. Instead of asking, what's wrong with me? The guide encourages you to think, what happened there? What can I learn from this? What might I do differently next time?
So it's less about beating yourself up and more about analyzing the situation to make adjustments. It's almost like a scientific experiment.
It is.
You test a hypothesis. If it fails,
Yeah.
you go back and tweak it.
Exactly. And it emphasizes developing what it calls a growth mindset, seeing challenges as opportunities to, learn and improve. And that mindset, that resilience, that's built by facing these challenges, not avoiding them.
Okay, I can see how that applies to job hunting, but what about once you've landed the job? How do you balance learning and growing with, actually doing the work, especially when there's this pressure to always be on, to prove yourself, especially when you're new? Have you ever felt that?
Absolutely. It's a trap a lot of us fall into, particularly early in our careers. We want to impress our bosses, take on every project, work late. But the guide reminds us, a career, it's a marathon.
A marathon.
Not a sprint. It's so true. A marathon, not a sprint. And just like an athlete needs rest,
Yeah.
recovery to perform at their best, we need time to recharge, pursue interests outside of work.
Outside.
It's about sustainability, in the long run.
It makes sense. You can't pour from an empty cup,
Yeah.
right? But how do you actually do that? Especially when there's so much pressure to prove yourself, to go the extra mile. What does this guide recommend for setting those boundaries, finding that balance?
Well, I think it starts with recognizing that taking care of yourself is part of doing good work. You can't be your best, most creative self if you're burnt out and exhausted.
Right, like trying to run on fumes.
Yeah.
So what are some of the specific strategies? What does the guide suggest?
One that really resonated with me is this idea of building a resilience toolkit. Think of it as like a collection of practices and habits that help you weather those inevitable storms, stress, setbacks, challenges.
Okay, I love that analogy.
Yeah.
So it's not like resilience is something you're either born with or you're not.
Yeah.
It's a skill you can actually develop.
Exactly. It's like a muscle you can strengthen over time.
Okay.
And it offers some concrete exercises, so to speak.
Give me some examples. What goes in this toolkit?
Well, for one, it highlights mindfulness and stress management techniques. Things like meditation, deep breathing exercises, even just going for a walk in nature.
Nature, yeah.
Physical activity can be a game changer, too. It clears your head, releases tension.
I definitely relate to that. I always feel so much better after a good run, even if I was feeling stressed beforehand. It's like hitting the reset button.
Exactly. And then there's that growth mindset we were talking about earlier, reframing challenges as opportunities, failures as feedback.
Right.
You know?
So if we tie that back to work-life balance, it's about not seeing self-care as slacking off, but as an essential part of staying energized and focused.
Yes, exactly. You're actually more productive in the long run if you take time to recharge. And one more thing the guide emphasizes for building resilience is a strong support system.
Okay, friends, family, that kind of thing.
Yes, but also mentors, professional networks, having people you can turn to for advice, encouragement, even just a listening ear when you need it. It's about knowing you're not alone in this journey.
That's so important. Having that sense of community makes those challenges feel less daunting. But I've got to ask, what about staying positive? It's easy to talk about, resilience and growth mindset. But when you're in the thick of it, facing rejection after rejection, it can hard to keep your chin up.
I hear you. Positivity can feel like a luxury when you're struggling, but the guide presents it less as a feeling and more as a mindset. It's not about pretending everything's okay, but about choosing to focus on solutions, on possibilities.
So it's not about, toxic positivity or ignoring the challenges, but about approaching them with a more constructive problem-solving attitude.
Exactly. And the guide suggests this actually has benefits.
Oh, does it?
It helps you stay motivated, see opportunities others might miss, and build stronger relationships.
Okay, I'm sold. But how do we cultivate this positivity superpower? Because it does feel like a superpower sometimes.
Well, it offers some really practical tips.
Lay it on me.
One is setting realistic goals and celebrating those small wins. It's easy to get caught up in the big picture and forget to acknowledge the progress we're making along the way.
That's so true. Sometimes you need to stop and pat yourself on the back for those little victories.
Right? And those small wins build momentum, that sense of accomplishment that keeps you going. Another powerful tool the guide highlights is gratitude. Taking time to appreciate what's going well, even amidst challenges, can really shift your perspective.
It's like that saying, what you focus on expands. If you're constantly dwelling on the negative, it can be hard to see the good.
Exactly. And one last suggestion from the guide, which I found really empowering, is to stay open to new opportunities. Be flexible in your thinking. Sometimes what we perceive as a setback is actually redirecting us towards something even better.
I've definitely experienced that.
Yeah.
Sometimes a closed door leads you to an even more amazing path you hadn't even considered before.
Right. It's about embracing that uncertainty and seeing it as potential, not just a roadblock.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. Resilience, balance, positivity. What else does this guide say about not just surviving, but actually thriving in your career?
That's a great question, and it's where the guide gets even more interesting. Because it's not just about navigating challenges, it's about proactively creating a career that truly aligns with your values and ambitions. And that takes a bit of a mindset shift.
Okay, I'm all in on mindset shifts. What are we talking about here?
Well, one thing the guide emphasizes is the importance of setting ambitious goals. Even, or perhaps especially, when things are going well.
How interesting. It's like pushing yourself beyond your comfort zone even when you don't have to. Because that's where the real growth happens.
Exactly. It's easy to stay within the boundaries of what we know we can do. But to reach our full potential, we need to keep stretching ourselves, raising the bar even when we're already doing well.
But how do you set those ambitious goals without getting overwhelmed or setting yourself up for failure? It's a fine line, right?
Absolutely. And that's where self-awareness comes in. The guide stresses that it's about finding that sweet spot between challenging yourself and setting achievable targets.
So knowing your strengths, your weaknesses, and what you're truly passionate about.
Exactly. And being honest with yourself about where you need to grow, what skills you need to develop to reach that next level. And remember that growth mindset we talked about. It comes into play here too.
So it's not just about the goal itself, but the approach to reaching it. That constant learning and adaptation, even when you're already successful.
Precisely. And the guide offers some really practical tips for staying ahead of the curve. One of them is to embrace the idea of being a lifelong learner.
I feel like we've touched on that throughout our conversation. But why is continuous learning so crucial even when you're already doing well in your current role? Isn't it tempting to just coast a little when things are good?
It's human nature to want to relax once you've reached a certain level of comfort. But the guide makes a compelling point. The world is constantly evolving, especially in today's job market. New technologies emerge, industries shift. The skills that were in demand yesterday might be obsolete tomorrow.
It's like that old saying, the only constant is change. But it's one thing to acknowledge that change is happening. How do we stay ahead of it? Where do you even begin?
Well, the guide breaks it down into 3 key areas. First, stay informed about industry trends. It recommends reading industry publications, attending conferences, following thought leaders. Basically, anything that keeps you engaged with the bigger picture.
So it's about being curious, not getting stuck in your own little bubble.
Exactly. The second piece is actively seeking out opportunities to expand your skill set. This could be taking online courses, attending workshops, even going back to school for additional certifications if it aligns with your goals.
So it's a combination of staying informed about what skills are needed and then taking action to actually learn them.
Exactly. And remember, learning doesn't have to be formal or expensive. There are tons of free resources online, from podcasts and articles to tutorials. The key is to be proactive and make learning a regular habit.
Make it part of your routine, just like brushing your teeth or working out.
Right. And then the third element of staying ahead of the curve, according to this guide, is networking. But it's not just about attending industry events and collecting business cards.
So it's more than just showing up and shaking hands. What makes networking effective?
The guide really emphasizes the relationship building aspect. It's about forming genuine connections with people in your field, sharing knowledge, exchanging ideas, and supporting each other's growth.
It's about finding your tribe. Those people who inspire you, challenge you, and help you see things from different perspectives.
That's a great way to put it. And the guide points out that these relationships can be invaluable, not just for staying informed about industry trends, but also for opening doors to new opportunities and collaborations.
So networking is like this amazing blend of continuous learning and relationship building all rolled into one.
Precisely. And it shouldn't feel forced or transactional. The guide encourages you to connect with people you genuinely find interesting, whose work you admire.
So it's about building a community of support and inspiration around you. It's not just about what you can get, but what you can give too.
Exactly. And when you approach networking with that mindset, it becomes much less about what can I get from this person, and much more about how can we help each other succeed.
I love that. It's a much more authentic and ultimately rewarding approach. So we've talked about setting ambitious goals, embracing continuous learning, and building a strong network. What else does this guide recommend for staying ahead of the curve?
Well, this might sound counterintuitive, especially since we're talking about thriving, but the guide also encourages you to embrace failure.
Wait, what? We're already killing it. Things are going great. Why would we want to fail?
It seems illogical, right? But the guide argues that failure, when approached with the right mindset, is one of the most powerful catalysts for growth.
Okay, help me understand this. If things are going well, why rock the boat?
Because think about it, when do we learn the most?
When we make mistakes, when things don't go according to plan.
Exactly. Those are the times that force us to reevaluate, to get creative, to find new solutions. If we're always succeeding, we might be less inclined to push ourselves to innovate, to take risks.
So it's not about seeking out failure, but about reframing our relationship with it. It's almost like if you're not failing, sometimes you're not trying hard enough.
That's a great way to put it. The guide reminds us that successful people, the ones who truly thrive, are often the ones who are willing to take risks and see those inevitable stumbles as part of the learning process.
It's that growth mindset again, isn't it? Seeing challenges, even failures, as data points, information we can use to improve.
Absolutely. And one of the most powerful tools for cultivating this mindset, according to the guide, is to practice self-reflection. Take time regularly to look back on your experiences, both successes and failures, and ask yourself, what worked well? What could I have done differently? What did I learn from this?
So it's like taking an inventory of your skills and experience, identifying strengths and areas for growth.
Right, and that self-awareness is key for setting realistic goals, knowing where you need to learn and improve.
So it's a combination of external actions like networking, seeking new skills and taking risks, and internal work cultivating that growth mindset and that resilience.
Exactly. And the guide stresses that this is an ongoing process. There's no finish line, no point at which we can say, okay, I've arrived, I'm done learning and growing.
It's a lifelong journey, always evolving.
And that's what makes it so exciting. It means there's always room for improvement, always new challenges to embrace, new heights to reach.
This is so inspiring. I feel like we've covered so much ground already. But there's one more piece of this thriving in your career puzzle that I want to explore, and that's the idea of finding purpose and meaning in your work. Because it's one thing to be successful, to climb the ladder to make a good living, but it's another thing entirely to feel like your work truly matters.
That's such an important point, and one that the guide spends a lot of time on. It's something a lot of people, especially early in their careers, struggle with.
Because you're so focused on getting your foot in the door, proving yourself paying the bills, that sometimes you lose sight of that bigger why.
Exactly. And the guide reminds us that a truly fulfilling career is about more than just a paycheck or a title. It's about finding work that aligns with your values, your passions, and your unique talents.
So it's about using your gifts to make a positive impact, whether it's on a grand scale or within your immediate community, finding that sense of purpose.
Right. And that feeling of contributing to something bigger than yourself can be incredibly motivating. It fuels your passion, boosts your resilience, and keeps you engaged even when facing challenges.
This all resonates so much, but I think a lot of people listening are probably wondering, how do I find that sense of purpose? How do I know if I'm on the right track?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And the guide offers some really helpful prompts for reflection.
Yeah, give me those questions.
The first one is, what are your core values? What do you care deeply about? What issues or problems in the world do you feel most passionate about addressing? Once you have a clearer understanding of your values and passions, you can start to explore career paths that align with them.
So it's about finding that intersection between what you're good at, what you enjoy doing, and what the world needs. That's a powerful combination.
It is. And the guide suggests talking to people who are doing work that you admire, maybe even shadowing them, to get a sense of what their day-to-day experience is really like.
Kind of like trying on different hats to see which one fits best.
Exactly. And the guide stresses that it's okay to experiment, to try different things. Volunteer for causes you care about, take on side projects that spark your interest. Treat your career as an ongoing exploration.
It's a journey of self-discovery, not a fixed destination.
Beautifully put. And remember, finding your purpose is not a one-time event. It's an ongoing process, always evolving.
It's like that quote, the journey is the destination.
I love that. And as you continue on your career journey, don't be afraid to reevaluate, to adjust course, to pivot if you find yourself feeling unfulfilled or misaligned with your values.
So it's not about finding the perfect career, but about creating a career that feels meaningful and purposeful to you. And that might change over time.
Precisely. And that's a key part of thriving, not just surviving.
This conversation has been so insightful, so empowering. I feel like I've got a whole new toolkit for not just navigating the challenges, but for creating a career that's aligned with my values and aspirations.
You too. This guide is full of gems. It's not just about grinding it out, but about finding work that feels fulfilling. And that's something we can all aspire to.
Absolutely. But before we wrap up part 2, I have one final question for you and for everyone listening. We've talked about how crucial it is to build a strong support system. Mentors and colleagues who can offer guidance and encouragement. But what if we are that mentor? That experienced professional who's further along in our career journey? How can we use our knowledge and experience to support those who are just starting out? To help them navigate those early career hurdles and find fulfilling careers of their own? That's something we'll dive into in part 3. So stay tuned, folks. There's more to come. We've been talking about all these things that can help you thrive in your career. But what about helping others do the same? It's like we've been given this amazing map for navigating the career jungle, and now it's time to share it.
I love that analogy. And the guide actually talks about this too. It emphasizes the importance of mentorship, not just receiving it, but giving it, you know? It argues that those of us who've, gained some experience, we have a responsibility to share what we've learned.
Makes sense. Think about it. We've all benefited, right? From someone's guidance along the way, a mentor, a professor who went above and beyond, even a colleague who gave us some solid advice.
Totally. We all stand on the shoulders of giants, as the saying goes. And as we gain experience, we become those giants for others coming up behind us.
I like that. Paying it forward. So let's say someone's ready to step into that mentor role. What does the guide say about being an effective mentor, especially for those just starting their careers? What makes a mentor truly great?
Well, the first thing it highlights is simply being approachable.
Approachable, okay.
And accessible, letting your colleagues know, or even people in your wider network know that you're open to sharing your experiences.
So it's not about waiting for someone to formally ask, will you be my mentor? Sometimes people, especially early in their careers, they might feel, intimidated or unsure how to approach someone more senior.
For sure. Creating that open door policy, that welcoming vibe can make all the difference. It signals that you're willing to help.
Okay. So let's say you've created that open environment and someone does reach out for guidance. What's next? How do you make sure you're actually, being helpful, not just...
Well, the guide stresses active listening. Really hearing what your mentee is saying, understanding their challenges, their aspirations.
It's not about just imposing your own experiences or solutions on them.
Definitely not. What worked for you, might not be the right path for someone else. It encourages mentors to ask questions, thoughtful questions, offer different perspectives, maybe share anecdotes from their own careers to illustrate points. But ultimately, it's about empowering the mentee to make their own choice.
You need a guide on the side. And not a dictator from on high, right? To discover their own path.
That's a perfect way to put it. And it's not always easy. It can be tempting, to jump in and solve the problem for them, especially if you've been there yourself. But, the most valuable lessons are often the ones we learn through our own, struggles and triumphs.
So even when it comes to mentorship, that growth mindset is key. It's about helping someone develop their own resilience, their own problem-solving skills.
Exactly. And that means, giving honest feedback, too, both positive and constructive.
Because, let's face it, sometimes we need a little tough love to help us grow. But it's all about how it's delivered, right?
Absolutely. The guide emphasizes, feedback should always be supportive, encouraging, always focused on helping your mentee develop their skills and reach their potential. It's about being a cheerleader, but also a coach who's not afraid to, point out areas for improvement.
Finding that balance between support and challenge. And one last thing I found really interesting in the guide, it encourages mentors to share their networks, introducing your mentee to people who might be helpful, opening doors for them.
Yes. It's like passing the torch, expanding their circle of connections, helping them build their own, network of support and inspiration.
Creating a ripple effect.
Yeah.
And ultimately, by doing so, you're not just helping, that individual. You're contributing to the growth and success of your whole field.
What a beautiful thought. Leaving a legacy. And one final nugget of wisdom from the guide that I found incredibly powerful, mentorship doesn't have to be formal or structured. It can be as simple as offering a word of encouragement to a colleague who's struggling, sharing an article you found insightful, or just making time for a coffee chat to listen to someone's ideas and offer your perspective.
It's those small acts of kindness, those moments of connection. They can make a huge difference. And they inspire others to do the same, to create a more supportive and collaborative work environment.
Exactly. And that brings us back to the heart of this conversation, really. Conquering the career jungle, it's not just about individual success. It's about, building a community of support, sharing knowledge and insights, lifting each other up as we all strive to create fulfilling and meaningful careers.
Well said. And that wraps up our deep dive into this amazing guide. We've covered so much: building resilience, embracing, continuous learning, finding purpose in our work, and paying it forward through mentorship.
It's been a fantastic journey, and I hope you, dear listener, are walking away feeling inspired and ready to not just survive, but truly thrive in your own career adventure.
Absolutely. So go out there, conquer those challenges, embrace those opportunities, and remember, you've got this, and we'll be here cheering you on.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep reaching for those stars.